Hi, everyone. My name is Shireen Mir-Jabbar, and I am from the Canadian Alliance of Physiotherapy Regulators. Welcome. I am a liaison to the Conference Planning Committee through the Marketing and Communications Committee. So today, we're going to be talking to you about the TAICEP conference coming up, the second virtual conference. It's happening from October 25th to November 19th. We've assembled a group of our colleagues to discuss the conference, and we hope that you'll be joining us this fall. Before we get started with our questions, I'd just like everyone to introduce themselves, tell us who you are, your title, your organization, or institutional affiliation.
Thanks, Shireen, for the welcome. Hi, everyone. My name's Chris Lyons. I'm the head of external engagement at UK ENIC, what was UK NARIC, the National Agency for Recognition within the UK. I'm sure many of you are familiar with us and our services. Yeah, it's great to be looking forward to what will be my second TAICEP conference, TAICEP 2021. I think I'm in the unique position where the conferences that I've attended have both been virtual. So I'm also looking forward to another virtual experience and perhaps something face-to-face in the longer term. But hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello, Shireen. My name is Ina Chaisson. I'm an international admissions consultant at MacEwan University on Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I am a volunteer for the certificate committee with TAICEP, and this will be my second virtual and my third TAICEP conference this year.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. My name is Naveen Vasudev. I'm the manager of business development and stakeholder relations, particularly international stakeholder relations for the South African Qualifications Authority here in Pretoria. And this is going to be, just like Chris, you mentioned, this is going to be my second virtual TAICEP conference. The first one I attended. At this time, we will be doing a couple of presentations. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. What a diverse group of people from around the world. That's awesome. So I think a number of you mentioned that you plan to attend this year's conference. So, what are you guys looking forward to this year at this conference?
There's always so many things to look forward to. I think it's going to be really interesting this year because the way in which the conference is organized is different. It's thematic by region. There's also a lot of variety in terms of different sessions. So there are some sort of short, snappy mini sessions, and there are longer discussions. There's round tables. And I like the fact that just looking through the program, you can have something highly specific that looks at a particular award and a particular issue, and then another session which is looking more globally and more broadly at some of the issues that affect a particular region. So I am also presenting, and I love that element of it as well, the interaction, meeting people from all over the world, from the comfort and privacy of my study, and getting into the meaty discussions that, that originate from such conferences as the TAICEP conference. So plenty to look forward to.
I'm looking forward to networking the most. What I've learned in my 3 years with TAICEP is that the people that are involved in TAICEP are populated across all groups. So there's international credential evaluators who just do that. And then there's people like me situated inside of an institution. And then there's people like Chris and Naveen who work at the national level in their countries. So that mixture is just so interesting, and I get to pick all those fabulous brains. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
I think it's very similar, Ina, for me and my colleagues. For one, this is really interesting to have the Africa representatives of Africa, the continent. I always mention when one talks about Africa, there are 54 nations in this continent, but to have a representation at TAICEP is really, it's an honor for all of us. It's really exciting. And for the last few years, I've been very closely involved with TAICEP. Some of my colleagues also have been, but I think this is a great opportunity. And I'm really looking forward, not just for the conference, but even the follow-up, the networking that can be done with African countries, representatives from the African countries. But also, if you look at the out-migration from the African continent to North America and the other countries, it's very high, and that is the future. This whole issue of mobility, learner mobility. So TAICEP and platforms like this are crucial in this learner mobility process. So I'm really looking forward to it. And as Chris mentioned, the thematic divide, it's great. I mean, I was there last year, but I see this as a very interesting area that one can pick and choose or go for all the variety of learning that is possible, the sharing. And again, I'm also very excited to share information from Africa. We had done a little survey in the TAICEP mail asking for what kind of questions would you be interested about the Africa region, regional, Pan-Africa questions. And it was exciting to see the interest that had come through. And I'm hoping at the presentation, we will be able to address many of the queries that had come on the African education landscape.
Wow, that's excellent. So it sounds like there's a lot to look forward to at this conference. And I know some of you touched on this a bit in terms of the fact that there's going to be some thematic changes or differences in this year's conference. But is there anything else you'd like to add that you think would make this year's conference different than the ones that you've attended in the past or will be attending in the future? And not just with TAICEP, but maybe other similar conferences. So what would make this conference stand out, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question, Shireen. I think that the program is so extensive and diverse. And just to return to what I was saying at the top, the fact that there are so many different regions of the world that are covered, I think just shows that there is a diversity in content. And I think as a broader observation, that also demonstrates how relevant credential evaluation is as a profession and how the practices around credential evaluation touch upon everyone. Naveen talks about mobility, and of course, for credential evaluation practices to be effective, that then sort of has the knock-on effect of enabling mobility of experienced mobility of students, of peoples, of professionals. So I guess you start off looking at very sort of precise, specific subject areas, and then you kind of zoom out, as it were, and realize that, wow, it's such a diverse conference, so many different topics, where the practices that we're all involved in touch upon different education systems from around the world. Yeah, it is just incredible to think that, it's exciting because it's so relevant, and it just sort of brings everybody together from wherever they are in the world. With Naveen's experiences from SACA and from Ina's within the institution, and myself from a national agency, there's all sorts of different backgrounds, and that really struck me in my first conference last year, principally in the discussions, and I'm looking forward to that element as well. I think that's what sets it out. And kudos to the organizers. I mean, wow, this is a 4-week conference, so that's some program. 4 weeks is really impressive. So I think there's that element that I'm looking forward to as well, that you can dip in and out, I guess. It's not sort of a 2-day event where everything is crammed in. I like the space and that sense of time to consider, time to reflect on certain subjects, and then move on to the next thing.
For myself, I really appreciate how I will probably always be intermediate advisor I'm sorry, evaluator. And so that means that I get to pick the brains of all these experts and engage them in a lively debate, usually on things like grade conversions and equivalencies and benchmarks and things that just are glorious when you're international credential evaluator and you can speak the same language easily across your own cohort of people who are from around the world who share this common desire to help people move however they do it. If they're refugees and fleeing conflict, or if they're moving, or if they are going to become an international student and then return to their own country. I really like the aspect that we're serving such a diverse group and we're really in it for the future.
I think for me, one of the areas I find really very interesting is the role of networks, particularly in the last few years, the role of networks and networking, how they have been influencing communities of practice in the education landscape, but also generally the issue I raised before of learner mobility, and how networks such as TAICEP can and is playing a very important role. But what really I find interesting is what is the possibility of networks networking with each other?
Mhm.
How do you bring that connections between networks? So besides my regular job at SACWA, I also wear the hat of a secretary for the African Qualifications Verification Network. It's a mouthful, but it's focused on a Pan-Africa attempt to improve verification practice in the continent. Now, that is an interesting network. We've had some very good experiences there, but what really I find interesting is how networks like the AQVN can be of assistance to link TAICEP, for example, in the African continent, besides other networks, the GDN, there are so many networks. So I think in some ways, well, the conference is the platform, but I'm sure there's quite a bit of work that we can do. And I'm very much excited to be able to help pre-conference, but also after the conference, what can be actually done to develop linkages with these networks. So that is an area I find personally very exciting.
Excellent. So much to look forward to, all the networking and sharing, mobility. Thank you for all of that. So you guys have said so much about the TAICEP conference, but I want to ask one more question, I guess. If there's anything else you'd like to add about this year's TAICEP conference, or perhaps about TAICEP that you haven't already mentioned.
Yeah, maybe I can just pick up on something that Naveen was just saying. My role actually changed at the start of 2020, and I took on this external engagement role, ironically enough, because a couple of months later we went into lockdown, and the idea of engaging, getting out and about was suddenly turned on its head, and I was getting out and about from the confines of this room. But what's been amazing about that is that I have actually been able to engage so much with so many people from all corners of the world over the last 18 months. And I think one of the peaks last year for me professionally was taking part in my first TAICEP conference in the November, and realizing that even within the sort of the Zoom sphere, you can engage, you've got plenty of friendly faces in front of you, you've got people who are interested, people who are asking really awkward, difficult, interesting, challenging, tricky questions. There's lots of discussion and opinion. And there I was engaging with the screen with all of these people. And I think that perhaps if we look back on last year, people might have been really worried about how are we going to make things like conferences work when we're all locked down or we can't get out and about. And actually what it showed is with a bit of endeavor and organization and the determination to do things, that irrespective of the platform, things can be done successfully. And I thought the conference last year was a great step forward. It was a real eye-opener for me in that respect, having that virtual conference experience. I have mentioned off camera, I guess, that I am actually looking forward to doing a face-to-face conference at some point, and I have it on good authority that we'll be looking to Glasgow in the future. But I think for me, last year was about getting into TAICEP. It was my first conference, and I think picking up on Naveen and Ina talking about that interaction and networking, I think that's something I'll be able to concentrate a bit more on perhaps this year. Last year I was more sort of focused on what's my session, how am I going to deal with the questions, and then actually the experience was really, really positive and uplifting. You know, you get that rush at the end of a session because the engagement has been so fantastic. And I'm looking forward maybe to participating a bit more from the other side of the presentation this year. But I mean, there's so many things to look forward to, and being able to look out for the involvement of these excellent guests that we have with us today. So loads to look forward to.
I would say the two extra things, Shireen, would be, I think it's really valuable that TAICEP has offered 1-year membership with enrollment in this, or decision to attend this. Actually 3, I'm going to slip another one in. All the sessions are recorded. The benefit to being live in a session is that you do have that active discussion. I find that the discussion in TAICEP meetings of any kind, like TAICEP at your desk, etc., is very active and very engaged and quite informal. We know each other, and even if we don't, we can make mistakes in front of each other and get information and correct our own practice. And as somebody who's not a senior evaluator, I value that immensely. So those are the 3 extras I would say are big bonuses.
Yeah, Chris and Ina have spoken about some of the issues that I had in mind, but I really want to appreciate the TAICEP. One of the areas, it's a development part where you're giving bursaries to people who can attend the conference, which is wonderful. It just opens the doors, and I think that is something that I really appreciate. The other thing, this is beyond the conference, but just that I think I got to know more about TAICEP through the TAICEP Gaggle mail.
Yes.
It is just phenomenal, I must say. Yeah. And I keep telling, I think my organization, they're just tired of me constantly talking about the interactions that I keep having on Gaggle. It's like a bunch of friends over coffee or whatever. We're constantly talking, chatting, querying each other. And I must say there's so much also behind the scenes, because we meet on Gaggle, and then later we are interacting on so many issues. I so appreciate it, I must say, colleagues. This is how I think networks should work. There's so much to learn from TAICEP, and this is one of the wondrous, I mean, it helped me understand the network so much better. And that's why I'm here, and I'm hoping that one is able to give back to the network in so many ways. I hope so. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, everyone. It sounds like this is going to be an amazing conference with an amazing bunch of people like you guys. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about this year's conference. This is definitely a conference not to miss. So for everyone watching this video, if you want to learn more about the conference, please visit taicep2021.drifta.com. Also, everything you need to know about TAICEP is at taicep.org. And if you're on social media, look out for TAICEP on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for all the latest updates. Thank you all for listening and watching. We hope to connect with you this fall.